for the folks who are not able to be here. Welcome to It's Just a Phase, Don't Miss It. Welcome to middle school. We're really glad that you guys are able to be here with us. Sarah and I have been doing middle school ministry for a long time. Since Sarah was in middle school ministry, no, but it feels like it. We've been around Woodbury Lutheran for a while, and we are excited to get to hang out with your soon-to-be middle schoolers. How do y'all feel being parents of middle schoolers? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Are you feeling good about it so far? Kind of middle?
Sure.
Lots of emotions, tears.
Tears. That makes sense. Okay, how many of y'all, this is your first middle schooler? Like they're your oldest? Okay, so Holly, you've got older kiddos? Okay.
Yes, I have two older girls. One's 25 and one's 22.
Okay, so you're a pro. You've got middle school down.
Kind of. Been a while. It's
That's
changed
awesome.
in 10 years.
Well, we are really grateful to get to walk alongside y'all, and thank you for setting aside some time tonight to get to know us and for us to get to know you. So here's our plan for tonight. We are going to talk about this next phase of life and also share with you a little bit of research that Barna has done on Gen Z and how this generation interacts with things of faith. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what comes next in Woodbury Lutheran Youth Ministry, because you are transitioning from kids ministry into youth ministry, and we are pumped to have you. And then a little bit of time for questions and some prayer time at the end. I am going to put in the chat, if I can figure out how to do it here. Maybe not. I want to put in the chat. We'll see if I can figure it out. The link, if nothing else, I'm going to email you out the link of the slideshow and a recording of this. I'll send to that same email list I distributed this morning with the PowerPoint. So you don't need to worry about taking notes or anything like that. And if you wanted to look at it more closely, you're welcome to do that. And also, if you wanted to watch parts of it again, you can do that too. But let me start with a prayer. And then I believe I get to hand it over to Sarah.
You do, yeah.
God, you are good, you are faithful. I thank you so much for these families. I thank you for the young people that they are raising and how they have poured into them in so many different ways, especially choosing to make space in their life to show them what it looks like to be a disciple that follows you. I thank you for the faith that you've planted in the hearts of each of these young people and the homes that they are being raised in, where that faith is being nurtured and encouraged. And Lord, we are so excited to get to walk alongside each of these families as they raise and nurture middle schoolers. So Lord, as we share information tonight, I pray that you would help our words to feel encouraging and empowering, that each of these parents would step out of this time able to see their young person in a new way, maybe, and thoughtfully thinking about how to use these next days and years well. Be with us as we gather this evening. We love you. Amen.
Amen.
And I should have probably introduced myself. I'm Lindsay Schmidt. I work with middle schoolers here. This will be my 16th. I'm in my 16th year, which is bonkers to me. And I mostly spend time with middle school students. I hang out with our Valley Creek young people on Wednesday nights, and I help kind of design and coordinate curriculum across all of our campuses at Woodbury Lutheran. And this is my friend, Sarah.
I'm Sarah. I know a lot of you because of my work in kids ministry. So this is kind of exciting for me because you see me with your kids either virtually on Sunday mornings or just around various VBSs and activities like that. And then I also have the joy of being able to work with our youth at our Oak Hill campus. So I oversee all of our youth ministry stuff that happens at our Oak Hill campus. And then on top of that, I am also, well, if you're virtual, you've noticed that I've greeted you as you've signed on to worship the past few weeks. I also manage our social media pages as well. So I've been on staff now. It's crazy for me to say this, for 6 years, which does not feel like it's been 6 years. But yeah, I'm excited to be with you guys and to talk a little bit about where your kid is heading next. And I think, Lindsay, you're controlling the slideshow, right?
I am.
Yeah. Okay, great. Today we're going to be jumping into stuff that's put out by Orange, which is based out of California. I believe Lindsay's holding up the book. It's called It's Just a Phase, So Don't Miss It. We've been using we call it phase stuff. We've been using the phase, their work, for a lot of years now. And what it's helped us do is to figure out where kids are at these different stages. So you'll see a couple of graphs on this slide and on the next slide when we get to it that talk about just the different, just where they're at with faith stuff and thinking wise and how they process things. And for us, it's been a huge blessing and a huge tool that we've been able to utilize, because it's shown us like the type of questions to ask the different phases, what they need from their small group leaders, and all of these things like that. So as you look on this one that's in front of you, the life stage milestones, here at 6th grade, they're coming up on a new type of milestone, which is identity. So they're celebrating the journey towards adulthood. You guys may have noticed in your 5th grader that they're starting, I think they're a little bit older than they maybe actually are. They're starting to maybe push back against some of the things that you are saying or setting in front of you. But they, my brother is now, no, oh goodness gracious. My family is all coming back from the cabin. And so they, I don't even know where my Zoom thing went. Hold on, guys. There we go. Okay. My brother called, they're coming back from the cabin. So my everything went away. So you see on here that we have the identity, and Lindsay, you can go to the next slide. So here is the parental influence that we see. You can see that as you get older, the positional influence, so the circle that's at the top of the screen, it's going down, and the relational influence is going up. So right where you are is at kind of the intersection of influence. So this dynamic shift is when, I don't want to say the roles kind of switch, because you're always going to be their parent, but what you see is, again, he called me again. This is fine. This is what happens when your family comes back from the cabin at a different time than you do. But what we see is that the things start to shift. So your relational influences starts to increase, whereas your positional influence starts to decrease. Now, that's not saying that you don't have the authority that you used to, because you do, because you're their parent. But there's different voices that are kind of being added to it. So you've got the circle of friends that we'll talk about in a little bit, that they will listen to their opinion maybe more than they did when they were younger. You've got social media saying another thing. And we've got all of these different independence things that are happening. And if you also look, this is the one that I don't like to say, your hours with your kid are decreasing the closer they get to graduation. So where you're at in the 6th grade, you're jumping from 6 to 4 hours. And so the amount of face time that you're getting with your kid is a little less than what you're used to. So you've got the morning time when they're getting ready for school. You've got the drive time when you're either driving them to school or various activities. And then you've also got them at a mealtime. I get that mealtime looks different for all of our families based on what type of activities we're doing. But you have this time that you get that's just with them. I wish I would have looked, Lindsay, you might have the book in front of you, of how many hours you have left when your kid's in 6th grade. But this is just a pivotal time in our kids' lives. So now it's over to Lindsay.
Yeah, I don't have hours, but I do have weeks.
Weeks. I wanted weeks. I didn't want hours.
I was like, that's a really big number to do math, to find out how many, any of you math majors out there, y'all can do the math on how many hours 600 or 364 weeks is. But that's about 7 years from now. You're going to have a senior who's about to graduate. My hunch is that for some of you, that made your stomach hurt thinking about that, and maybe brought some tears to your eyes, because that's crazy. That's totally crazy. And I think at times that can feel really overwhelming. This next phase of life is significant. And during these next few years, you're going to be helping raise a young person who is going to be learning to drive, figuring out how to vote, learning about working and what it looks like to take care of their own bills and paying for things, thinking about who they're going to date or who they're going to marry. Like these are things that are going to be happening over the next 7 years. And so our desire here at Woodbury Lutheran is to walk alongside you and help your young person root all of these big decision things that are coming their way, have that be rooted in knowing that they are a loved, saved, changed child of God. We use those words a lot in youth ministry because we feel like they capture sort of the experience of being a young person who is a disciple. Really, I think they capture what it looks like to be a disciple of Jesus, that we know that we are loved unconditionally by God, that we are saved, that he has claimed us as his and stood in our place and given us the opportunity and the gift of living freely. We don't have to carry our sin with us, and he saves us from the punishment we deserve, and that he is continuing to work on us, continuing to walk with us and change our hearts so that we become more and more like him. And so as parents of 6th, 7th, 8th graders, middle schoolers, all the way up through seniors, these next 7 years are important. Start thinking through, what do they need to know? What skills do they need? Maybe over this summer, start journaling about what things do you want your 6th grader to have at the end of these 7 years, and start building those things into life. I don't have kids myself, but having walked alongside families with young people, I think it's easy to start just to keep thinking of them as little, that it's hard to start to think about these young people as folks that are separating themselves from us as parents or adults and becoming their own person. And so it is valuable, I think, to set some time aside and start processing what questions should we be creating space for? What core truths do you want your young person to have internalized? And we would love to be a part of that process with you. So here are some of the questions that your young person, whether they're able to articulate it or not, they're probably thinking. So over the last few years, you've probably noticed that their interest in friendship has increased. Now, COVID, I think, probably complicated that a little bit. Maybe you started fighting some different battles than you had in the past of like, how do we say, the governor told us we're not supposed to hang out with people, but my kid needs to hang out with people. You probably had to work through that, navigate it, because these last couple of years, 4th and 5th grade, are all about figuring out, do I have friends? What does it look like to have friendship? Learning the language of my peers. That's really important. And then in 6th grade, they start unpacking, who do I like? They're looking for creating stability. They want to start to figure out, who am I as a person and who do I connect to? Not just do I have friends, that's still important, but also how do I fit in my friend group? And so not every kid will shift from being a 4th and 5th grade, kind of the do I have friends person, into a who do I like, or who am I, a person of middle school. They don't shift all at the same time, but potentially you might start noticing some of these shifts. I like to call it a tipping point. Some of our middle schoolers, they stay, I don't know, little for a little bit longer than others. And that's awesome. I think there's nothing that is wrong with that, because soak up the kid time as long as you've got it, right? But as your kid starts to shift into the, I want to think for myself, I want to do things my own way, explain to me why you say your way is better. As they're doing all of that, they're probably going to bounce back and forth. So like today, they might tell you, don't tell me who to be friends with. And then tomorrow, they're gonna be like, who should I be friends with? They're probably gonna go back and forth for a while because they're still figuring out what does it look like to be me, separate from you. And just like a toddler moves in and out of that kind of circle of safety. If you remember with your kids, they'd go off and do something and then they'd come back and check, is it safe? I'm still with you. Okay, I'm safe. And then they'd run back out and do something. They'd come back to you. Oh, it's okay, I'm safe. The same thing happens through the middle school years. And that's why it's really important what Sarah said, that idea of positional influence. You still have influence in your young person's life, and they may push back against it, but they need you to stand stable and safe for them. And so a friend of mine, she'll say things like, just stand still and stable, like be present, steady. When your young person feels like they're all over the place, stay steady so that they know they can keep coming back to you and that you're a safe place. Our young people in middle school often are highly motivated by fun and acceptance. And so it is important that there's lots of opportunities to engage their interests, to affirm their experience, like the things that they're good at, the stuff that others may notice in them, to keep affirming that. That's probably why they love the things they love. So if they're good at it, if let's say they like baseball, the reason why it's so hard to say, no, we're not going to go to baseball, we're going to go to something else, and there, you get a strong reaction to that. It's because they know they're good at baseball. There's acceptance there. It's hard to not be at the thing where they feel really good about themselves, or that they feel like they are accepted. And I'm going to show you another graph here that will maybe capture this a little better. Now I'm not seeing it. Here we go. Motivated by acceptance and affirming their personal journey. This is also the point in your young person's life where there's another round of discovery. So they've been discovering things all along. So as a kid, there's a lot of wonder, discovery, and passion. And then in elementary school, middle elementary school, their wonder gets really big. Second graders are excited about a lot of stuff, right? Everything's exciting. You can blow a child's mind if you can pull off a coin trick. Like all this stuff is just so fun, right? And the discovery, like I want to learn is still really high. And passion, they're still figuring out what am I excited about? What makes me, how do I want to change the world around me? It's growing, but it's not super influential yet. But for middle schoolers, these things start to shift. Discovery is still really high. They are soaking up information at a rapid rate. I found a statistic that says in sixth grade, a sixth grader's brain undergoes rapid brain growth. They get an increased attention span. They hit puberty. They're going to gain 50% of their adult weight over the next 3 years. And this all happens in this very tight period of time. So they're transforming rapidly, and their brains are capturing information in new ways. And unfortunately, the people who love them the most often get the most grumpiest versions of them, because they're using all this work to hold it together in environments where they're learning from their peers, gathering information from all around them so that they can survive in their peer group. And so the folks that know them the best, the people that they know the best, the places where they feel the most safe are the places where they're not having to work as hard at holding it together. And so you get to see the effects of growing this rapidly in this short of a period of time, which makes probably being their parent quite complicated. I feel like that's maybe an understatement. It might be really hard. So this next phase of life, there is no other point that has less consistency for sorry about that. for a young person than this transition into middle school. Lots of things shift. School things shift. Their understanding of how they fit in their peer groups shift. There's a lot of opportunity to wonder, do I fit? Do I not fit? Who cares about me? Their awareness of other people's opinions increases rapidly. And just the nature of their world is that their peer group, this group that's very influential, is probably where they're going to pick their future spouse, right? Maybe not this specific group of kids, but they're learning the language of their generation. And so every time they're around other people at school, at sports, in your neighborhood, they're learning how to communicate with people who may eventually be part of their lives forever. And so there's a lot of knowledge that's being gained, and even maybe a whole new language for them. This is why they're so highly friend-driven and motivated by acceptance. At times, you might find yourself hearing them talk about things that you've never heard them talk about, and there could be maybe an impulse to have all the thoughts that are in your head show up on your face. And so we say this a lot, try to hide your inside freak out and keep your outside face going, oh, tell me more about that. That sounds interesting. How do you feel about that? This is the time when it may be difficult for your young person to connect their head thoughts to their feelings and their emotions. And they may be very easily swayed by the people that are around them, because if another person has a really good explanation for something, they go, oh yeah, I want you to accept me, and that sounds really smart. I'm going to listen to you. But it might not totally connect with who they believe, what they believe, and who they are. So we, as the adults in their life, get to help them navigate how they take in information and how they process and find out what do they believe and why do they believe it. But a sure way to stop that conversation is to go, you can't say that. Why did you believe that? Why would you even watch that? Like, to freak out, that freak out response can pretty quickly shut down conversation. So we are encouraging you now, start practicing keeping your outside face calm and thoughtfully asking more questions. You've already probably noticed this, because a lot of times this already starts in fourth and fifth grade, but they're shifting from concrete to abstract and back and forth. And definitely challenging authority, because that's part of finding their way out of the nest. And so they want to practice, you want them to practice being them while there's still a safety net of you helping them navigate life. Our goal in all of this is to help raise, equip, and launch capable, Jesus-loving, healthy adults. And while that sounds amazing and awesome, we're really, that equip is important. It's not so much that they're going to all of a sudden at 18 be like, ding, I'm a perfect human, but giving them the things that they need to be able to launch into the world ready to make mistakes and work through those mistakes. And now Sarah.
And now me. Okay, I don't know if you guys have this conversation as much as those of us that are working with this age group, but we talk about the generation breakdown amongst what generation which kids fall into. So I know that I am a millennial. I'm close to in the middle of the millennial generation, I believe. And so for Gen Z, when we're talking about Gen Z, we're saying all of those students who were born between 1999 and 2015. So this study, the study that's in It's Just a Phase, they looked at students born between 1999 and 2004. And as I was looking through this stuff today, I would be very intrigued to see how these statistics change over this next year because of how often kids have had to be on screens, whether it be for distance learning or that was the only way that they could connect with their people while we were in the midst of a pandemic. But we see, and again, this was from 2019, I believe, and it was backed up by the 2020 study, that teens ages 13 to 18 spend 7.22 hours on entertainment screen media per day, which seems like a very high number. I have an iPhone because my brother works for Apple. So we've all kind of sold our soul to Apple. But every Sunday I get a notification that tells me what my screen time was on average per day. And so I usually spend a little over 4 hours a day on my phone doing different social media stuff. Now, granted, some of that stuff falls under the umbrella of work because I'm managing different social media pages. I'm doing whatever. But I also look because it tells you how many like notifications you average, like what time you spend on which apps and things like that. And so this is me. I'm 31, and so I think that my numbers are probably pretty low compared to a lot of teenagers. But last week I averaged 106 notifications a day, which seems like a very high number. And when I looked at the apps that I use the most, I'm not surprised that it was Facebook messages, so just the text messages I receive, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter. So granted, some of these apps I use for ministry purposes, and so that's why I'm on those apps more frequently than other ones. But if me at 31 is spending that much time in front of our screens, my screen, I think our students are spending significantly much more. And so because students are on their phones more, this has led to increased bullying, and not just bullying, but they have the freedom, not freedom, they think they have the freedom to say whatever they want because there's a screen separating them from whomever they're talking to. Apart from working at Woodbury Lutheran, I also work at Eastridge High School as a paraprofessional. And so walking through the hallways, I hear how kids speak to each other. I hear how they speak about each other. I hear how they speak about teachers that they don't like. And so when they have screens in front of them, they think that because it's anonymous, for all intents and purposes, that they can say whatever they want. And so because of that, studies have shown that this leads to an increase in depression, anxiety. And I've noticed this, that they're more willing to have relationships with people that they don't know or that they've never met in person, because they feel more safe because they've never had any physical contact with them. But they're more psychologically, what did it say, vulnerable because of this. And so I was looking, and I screenshot this in 2018 because I thought that this would come up at some point. But it was a tweet that I saw that showed the difference between friends talking in real life versus friends talking through social media. And so it was like when you're talking to someone face to face and they ask you how you're doing, you might just say, okay, I'm fine. But this tweet says, me talking to my internet friends, how are you? And I respond back, girl, I'm a wreck. I hate my life most of the time. I don't think I'll ever amount to anything. School makes me want to drown, and I secretly think everyone hates me. And so we have this, our kids have gotten so used to screens and social media that they are more willing to have these relationships where you don't actually meet the person on the other side, which I think is it's crazy to me to think that this is where some of our students are at. And so they report also, and I think this is huge. We did a study a couple of weeks ago amongst our middle schoolers and their families, and we saw that this was a thing, that they report feeling judged or pressured to meet high expectations. I'm pretty sure I grew up in one of the most least expectation-filled households. Like, I was a horrible student until I got to college. It just took me a while to figure out school and how I learned and all of that fun stuff. And so there were times where my parents would be happy if I made it through a class with a C- or a D+. And so I did not have high expectations like placed upon me as a teenager, but I placed those expectations on myself. Like, I thought that I had to act a certain way, dress a certain way, look a certain way, just so that I could fit in with the people around me. So a lot of our Gen Z kids, the pressure that they're facing isn't necessarily from the parents or from the adult figures in their world, except instead it's their own perceived expectations that they're placing on themselves. And I wish I could tell you that if you just say this sentence, that they won't get that way, but unfortunately I cannot. And so I think what we do then is just making sure that our kids know that they are valued for who they are, that they are loved, and all of that good stuff. So you can go to the next slide, Lindsay. So Gen Z also, and I think this is true for all generations, like when you're at this age, I don't think this is Gen Z specific, but they report to have generally positive experience with older generations, but feel most comfortable with their peers. That is not surprising to me, that our students would feel more comfortable with their peers, but have an overall good experience with adults. And I'm going to plug this now. And I plug this a lot, but we have incredible small group leaders at Woodbury Lutheran, like across the board, like from kids through high school. We have been blessed by some incredible adults that have agreed to walk alongside our students. Some of them for years, like Tim Shuby. I think a lot of you guys know Tim Shuby. He has been teaching Sunday school since I was in first, second, third grade, and he consistently has taught every year. And so we have been blessed by incredible adult leaders. And so the fact that we can trust, me and Lindsay can trust that our kids, when they come through our doors, are going to have positive experiences with the older generation, just because our small group leaders are so great. That's just my little plug, because I just really love our small group leaders. And so we also see that half will say that parents are their primary role model, but only a third that family is core to their identity. That I think that's important, that they can look at their parent and see them as a primary role model. I think I know most of you, I think all of you in this call, and can trust that not only have some of you in this call been mentors to me, but also that y'all are incredible role models to your children and to your family. And I'm going to read this, and I might read this a couple of times, but we see students engaged in church activities as well as attending worship are more likely to believe that the church is a safe place to find answers, that the Bible is true, and that faith in Jesus is the only way to God. Okay, I'm going to read that first line one more. Students engaged in worship activities as well as attending worship are more likely to believe that the church is a safe place to find answers. The youth ministry staff is very intentional, and kids ministry too, about making sure that our kids know that Woodbury Lutheran is a safe place, that they can come to us when they have faith questions, that they can come to us when they're experiencing all of life's different seasons. But it only happens when our kids are actively engaged. When they're engaged in their small group as well as attending worship, however that looks like for you guys now, if it's coming in person, if it's worshiping virtually, what have you. But when you've got the both and instead of the either or, it helps our kids to know that they have a safe place. And not just maybe at Woodbury Lutheran, but that they have a safe place at church as a whole. Okay, and you can go to the next slide. Okay, so how do we respond to all of these things that we have talked about up to this point? Ask lots of open-ended questions. My mom, I think, was the master of asking open-ended questions, and I was somehow the master of figuring out how to make them close-ended questions. I'm not sure how that worked. My poor mother. That's all I have to say. But what that means is saying, like, if you pick up your kid after a Wednesday night, you say, tell me one thing you learned at youth group tonight, versus did you have fun at youth group tonight? And Lindsay mentioned this at the beginning. Master the art of not freaking out, or not freaking out externally. You can freak out internally. That's fine. I think we all freak out internally, but it's all about controlling your face and your body language. And I can say that as having walked alongside a lot of students who have confessed a lot of things to me, that when you are open, when your body language isn't closed off, when you don't have your arms crossed, when you look more relaxed, your student is going to be more willing to tell you things because they see that you're willing to listen. Now, this is something that I think is hard to figure out because we want to react in the moment. But I also remember my mom saying that you can listen, but you might need to take a minute before you can either say something or respond in a way that will be helpful or fruitful to the relationship, to whatever is happening. And listen, I think that's going to be the theme for the next few slides, is to just listen and have conversations. Sometimes your kids just need to talk. They don't necessarily want you to maybe give them advice or try to fix their situation. They just need to feel like they're heard with whatever is going on. It's like when you're having a frustrating day and you just need to go to your spouse, your best friend, whomever, and just tell them all the things that happened. And then once you get them out of your head, then you're fine. I have a couple of friends who know me well enough that before we, like, if I'm telling them a lot of things, they'll look at me and say, okay, is there anything else you need to say to me? So it doesn't live inside your brain for the next week. So make sure that you're listening and you're setting yourself up to listen to your kids. And now you're trying to figure out with your teenager of how to set them up for success, whether it be to be a successful scheduler, of figuring out how to juggle all of the different sports, activities, extracurriculars that they do, of being like, okay, you've got this, and this weekend. Do you think you can handle having a sleepover at your friend's house? Do you think that you can handle going off and doing this and still being okay in the morning for whatever happens next? And I think encouraging sleep is huge. Like you can look at literally any research and say that teens need 8 to 10 hours of sleep just to keep up with their growth development and their brain development. So they need so much sleep. And we had a family at Woodbury Lutheran who, when their kids were all in that 6th through 12th grade age range, they wouldn't let them sleep with their phones at night. And so they always had to set their phones either, I don't remember if it was right outside their parents' bedroom or right inside their parents' bedroom, because then they knew that they wouldn't be on their phones and would actually fall asleep. And I think that is just an incredible idea. And this one's huge. Pay attention to what they're watching, viewing, streaming, etc. Just because a social media platform exists doesn't mean your kid has to have an account on that social media platform. Like if your kid really wants to get a TikTok, but you just aren't comfortable with all of the things that TikTok is, then tell them they can't get a TikTok account. Their life is not going to be affected in the grand scheme of things if they don't have a TikTok account. And just remind them that you're not always going to be the good guy. You're going to be the one that has to make these decisions that they might not like, but you're always going to be the one who loves them. You're always going to be the one who sees their giftedness, who sees the things that bring them joy. I will forever and always say that my mom, Jane Dibburn, was the first to realize that I was going to end up in church work. And she saw the things that I love doing and just placed me in those situations so that I could use my gifts, and that so that I could discover that this was what God had called me into. So just love them. Just remind them that they're loved. Okay, next one. Okay, keep the end in mind. What you're doing is that you're essentially making an adult disciple of Jesus. So keep talking. right? Keep having conversations with the students, with your kids. I think it's important to establish open lines of communication. Just making sure that your kid knows that you are the one that they can come to with whatever is going on in your life. And you might have a kid who doesn't really want to talk to you about what's going on in their life. I will say I was not the kid that wanted to talk to my parents about what was going on in my life. And so what my mom did was pray that God would place adults into my world that I could talk to, that I could trust with, with whatever was going on in my life. But just make sure that you're setting yourself up so that you can have those conversations, those honest conversations with your student. So help them to develop their Christian worldview. So all of this stuff comes out of what they see both in their home and what they see modeled with the people around them. It's said a lot. I learned this a lot in undergrad. I think I've read it more times than I can count. But faith is caught, not taught, and it's caught in the home. So your kids are watching what you do. They're watching how you react to situations. They're watching your habits. They're watching the words that you say, how you talk about the people in your world. And they, most importantly, they see how you're connecting with God. Like my main memory of my dad was his morning routine. So I'd be getting ready for school. When I was in college, I'd be getting ready to leave for the day. But what I always saw my dad do every single morning while he was living was he would eat his breakfast, he would organize his medication for the day, and he would do his devotion. So when I would leave the house for the day, I would see my dad with his Bible open and whatever devotion he was working through. And he would be actively in the Word and praying through our prayer page when we had physical prayer pages. My grandparents were married for over 70 years. And apart from those few years, my grandpa was off in the South Pacific during World War II. They would end each day the same way, of reading the Bible and praying together. I can still hear them praying together at night when we would all be at the cabin together. So just model this at home, model this faith, model the type of followers of Jesus you want them to be. Just model that at the home, in your home, and talk about truth, what it is, where you can find it. And if you don't know the answers, I'm going to say this multiple times, but kids love it when you can figure out the answers together. So if you don't know the answer to a question about what this passage in the Bible means, something about Christianity, figure it out together. Figure out where, dissect a Bible verse and figure out exactly what it means. But kids love it when you guys can figure it out together. Next one. Again, hey, keep talking, guys. Keep talking to your kids and setting up those open lines of communication. This is the fun one that I'm sure you guys really want to talk about all the time. But talk about healthy sexual integrity and talk about it regularly. This is something that is tricky and has changed a lot, I think, over the past probably since I was a teenager. So over the past 10, oh my gosh, I was not a teenager 10 years ago. That's not it. I was 21 10 years ago. Okay. But when I was a teenager, I feel like it's shifted so much since then. But the amount of conversations that I have had with students over the years about this specific topic, about sexual integrity, about what that even looks like in today's society. I've had a lot of conversations where they talk about the guilt that they feel over it, that they went further than they wanted to, that they just don't know what to do. And I've had kids say to me a lot that I thought it wouldn't be a big deal because of what I've seen on TV, what I've read in books, what I've seen on social media. I didn't think it would be a big deal, but it is, and now I don't know how to process it. And so have these conversations with them where you can kind of set the stage and just have again, open lines of communication. Apparently that's my word my phrase for the night. But also have conversations about things like money too, and talk about how having all of the money in the world is not what's going to make you happy. It's not what's going to fill you as a human being. It's going to be this thing that you just forever and always chase. I have a portion of my extended family that are all doctors. And so they're all very smart. They're all very established in their field. But I was talking to my cousin who is in her 70s. She grew up with my mom. And she said to me, "So Sarah, this church work thing, it's a just for now thing, right? Like you're just going to do it and then you're going to go get another job where you can make real money. That's your plan, right, Sarah?" And I looked at her and I said, "Man, I spent a lot of money if this is a just for now situation." And so just talk about how money, what is the phrase, that money isn't the key to happiness, but that there's other things that you should base your life around. And also, I think this is huge, and I see this now modeled in my friends as they become adults, but model how you want your kids to respond in all of life seasons. Like model how you should react when life doesn't go your way, when life is super stressful or you've hit a lot of hard seasons, but model how you want your kids to respond. I am forever thankful for my mom and how she set the precedent of how we would respond when life was hard, that we would acknowledge the pain, but we wouldn't let it take us down, that we would continue on because that's what we were called to do. I am forever thankful that, and I don't know if it was intentional either. Like I've asked my mom this question of, were you very intentional about how you reacted so that my brother and I would see how we should react? And she's like, "No, this was just what we did. And luckily you guys, you followed suit and you kind of figured it out along with us." And again, talk about what it looks like to be a disciple of Jesus. Because again, faith is caught, not taught, and it's caught in the homes with you guys. And next slide. Okay, again, hey, encourage your kids' relationship with Jesus. You guys have the Holy Spirit with you. We are in Kids Link are talking about the Holy Spirit. We are on week 5 of 6, and so I've been talking about this a lot with our kids. You guys are capable of doing it all. Like me and Lindsay are only with your kids for a very short period of time, a couple hours a week, but you're the ones who are in it with them. You're the ones who are driving them to activities. You're the first people they see when they wake up. You're the last people they see when they go to bed, before they go to bed. But you guys are in it with them more than we are. And so pray with them. Let them see you praying. Talk about it. Bring them in with you to whatever your devotion life looks like, just so that they see that this is something that we do, that this is something that we're called into, and that this is just what we do. And if you're ever looking at this task and think that it's super daunting and intimidating, Lindsay and I are always just a text, email, phone call away, because we want to equip you guys to be the faith teachers in your home. Because again, it's not hard. Lindsay and I both went to school for this, but it's not, it's something that all of us can do. So if you ever need any resources, any tools, any extra steps that you can take to dive into the words with your kids, just please reach out to Lindsay or myself so that we can help you with this. And expect them to have questions about faith, have questions about Jesus. Luckily, we have a God who encourages figuring this stuff out and who encourages taking a look like more deeply at what your faith actually looks like. So just walk that with them, answer their questions, and figure out answers with them so that they can see that you're figuring this out just as much as they are. And make sure that you affirm the personal journey. all of us have a different walk, and it all looks different for all of us. And so encourage that. Encourage your child's willingness and excitement to figure out exactly who God is in their life and how their God is working with them and for them. And also, I'm sure you do this already, but I'm just going to encourage you to continue to pray for your kid, that they will see God in new and powerful ways, that adults will be placed into their world that can help them grow in their walk, and just show them in your home how you want them to be a disciple of Jesus. Lindsay, back to you.
Okay, now take a deep breath. That probably felt a little overwhelming. Our intent is not to make you feel like you're underwater already, but maybe to give an idea of what's normal, maybe to normalize some of the things you've already been facing in your home, and also to give you some things that you can start to prepare now if it's not already happening in your house. So like I said, this information, we have books, you can check them out from the library, but we've got like this, It's Just a Phase book is in our church library. We've got other resources in the library like Sticky Faith. This is information put out by Fuller Youth Institute. It's amazing. It's all about helping your kids have faith that sticks with them. And it helps you set up kind of your rhythm. The tagline is everyday ideas to build lasting faith in your kids. We also have like just lots of other resources. So holler, we'd love to help you in all of that. And then now youth ministry, I want to give you kind of a picture of what's coming next in youth ministry. It looks different than Kidsmin. It's supposed to, because our kids are getting bigger, right? They're growing, and we know that part of the focus of middle school for our young people is relationships. And so we try to create environments where there's opportunity to build those relationships, and also to start building community, like a small group where they can ask questions of a small group leader and their peers about what it looks like to follow Jesus. So our summer programs, your young person as of today can jump into most everything. So summer Bible study starts on June 16th. This summer, we're going to be studying the Minor Prophets, which you might think, I haven't read the Minor Prophets. I hadn't either in a long time before I started preparing for the Bible study this summer. It's been a minute since I've studied them. So I'm excited to get to walk through it. I joke that the Minor Prophets are not PG-13, like they're not PG. We got a lot of topics in those books that can get a little dicey, but it's a great opportunity to have conversation about, like, why would God put this in the Bible and what's it teaching us about following Jesus? So we offer summer Bible study both at the Oak Hill campus and the Valley Creek campus. Our South St. Paul crew is still figuring out what that's going to look like. Their summer rhythm is still being worked out. There's a possibility that their summer Bible study may take place on Sunday mornings instead of Wednesday nights. There's no RSVP required for summer Bible study. Kids can just come, and even if they can't come every Wednesday, they're welcome to come the Wednesdays that they're able to come. We also have middle school manias. These are highly fun-driven hour-and-a-half experiences. They change location, so it is important to pay attention to where a middle school mania is. So we'll use VC, the letters VC to represent Valley Creek. We use OH to represent Oak Hill, and SSP at this point for South St. Paul. Once the South St. Paul campus has an official name, we'll use that. But middle school mania events are free. They're always an environment where a young person can bring a friend. Really, everything we offer a friend is welcome to come to. And there's a lot of fun. We do a devotion as part of that, but it's not Bible study. We'll have just a chance to talk about a faith concept and pray together and talk about highs and lows, but it's not overly thought-provoking. It's more about getting energy out and having fun and building relationships and feeling like this is my place. These are my people. And we have a couple of serve events this summer already booked. We've got more that might be getting added to the calendar as we go along. But on June 10th, there's going to be a family serve night at the Valley Creek campus, but it's open to all campuses. We'll get you more information for that. We are asking for an RSVP because we're going to provide pizza. So we want to know who's coming to that. And then later in the summer, we're going to do a servant event with Miracle League, and we'll also get you more details about that. And then just to put it on your calendar now, plan on being a part of youth ministry from now until 7 years from now. Like, so every Wednesday night now for the next 7 years. And if you've got younger kids, longer than that, because really just plan on Wednesday nights being your youth ministry night. We want your young person to have this like extra boost every week, reminding them that they are a loved, saved, changed child of God. Oh, I think I was supposed to, oh, here we go, fall. This is when I'm supposed to share with you. Ministries start on September 15th, and we have middle school ministry both at the Valley Creek campus and at the Oak Hill campus. Sarah, tell us about Oak Hill Youth Ministry.
It's pretty great. I mean, if I do say so myself. At our Oak Hill campus, we also offer Wednesday night programming, and it's on a little smaller scale because we are a smaller campus. And so we run the same schedule, the same time frame as the Valley Creek campus does. But during the middle school section, they are pretty much just in small group the whole time with some added games and extra teaching and stuff like that, just because they are a smaller group. And in high school, pretty much the same thing, but we have more of a large group, small group teaching style. And the Oak Hill campus is, they just have such a different feel than Valley Creek. And yeah, we run the same programming, just slightly smaller, because we are a smaller campus. So that's what I have to say about Oak Hill. There you go.
Yeah, so we try across the board in youth ministry to have small groups that stay pretty consistent from 6th grade into high school. Our hope is when small group leaders sign on to be small group leaders that they will try their best to stick with that same group of kids and kind of grow with them up through middle school. It creates a pretty stable environment, and also it's rewarding for the leader, because a 6th grade group sometimes is hard to have a meaningful, deep conversation with. By the time they're in 8th grade or 9th grade or 12th grade, you can have a great conversation about deep things. But if you put in the time working through kind of the squiggly wiggly time of 6th grade, you can get to some really amazing conversations into high school. And we have quite a few of our leaders that, even though the group is wiggly and gets distracted easily, they love hanging out with 6th and 7th graders in their wiggles. They love that season of helping them figure out how to be themselves and how to have opinions and conversations about the things they believe. On Sundays, this is probably the biggest shift for many of our families in middle school. You've been going to Kids Link things on Sunday mornings. That's been the rhythm probably for many of your families. Whether you worship and then go to Kids Link, or your kids go to Kids Link while you go to worship, either of those scenarios. For youth ministry, we do not have Sunday morning education for young people. We encourage our young people to be active in worship. And so if your young person has not done that with you very much, this summer is a really great time to help them figure out what that looks like, that they'll be an active part of our worshiping community here. And in the fall, that they'll continue to worship with you. We also invite them, if they are interested, to serve in kids ministry or as an usher or a greeter or parts of other things. We've learned over many years and lots of research that kids who serve in a faith family often have a sense of, this is my place. They have a really comfortable feeling around faith communities. And so it helps them transition into adults that go look for a church, and then they want to serve in those churches. That there's a really significant internalization of these are my people, this is what I do. I can think of many of our students who served in kids ministry here and then went to college and found a church they were aching for a faith family to be a part of in college because they missed serving in Sunday school. So when we help our young people find a personal ministry like that, something that lines up with their giftedness and shows them how they can use their gifts to bless God's people, it can help them stay connected to a faith family into their adult life. So Sunday mornings for middle schoolers, there's no youth ministry on Sunday morning, just worshiping and serving. And then many of you probably are wondering, when does First Communion start? At Woodbury Lutheran, we do offer First Communion classes for families during Lent, which is the 6 weeks leading up to Easter. So if you find Easter on the calendar, back it up 6 weeks, or if you find Ash Wednesday on the calendar, it's usually going to start around that. It's a 4-week class for a parent and your 6th grader. Both parents are welcome to come, but they don't have to. We offer it on 2 different days. You do the classes together, and then traditionally on Monday, Thursday, we have First Communion service, and there's always opportunities if that doesn't work for your family, if spring break or vacations happen. And you can always find youth information at wlcyouth.org. I say that, and then potentially if we get a brand refresh, it may not be, I say always, and it's not probably going to be right. So for now, or maybe forever, we don't know, wlcyouth.org is the place to find information, and WLC Youth on Facebook and Instagram. And if we are refreshed, we will modify this and give you the information, but that's the place to find the most up-to-date information. I will say, for families that have chosen to share their journey with me, kids who start engaging in youth ministry stuff right away now, like coming to Middle School Mania like this Friday, or the folks that came last Friday or at the end of April, or they come during the summer, those kids seem more comfortable coming into youth ministry in the fall. And the kids that are comfortable getting jumped in, they're the ones that kind of stick it out. So encourage your young person to try as many of these things and to come a couple of times before they make an opinion about whether it fits for them or not. And it's really, really helpful for Sarah and I, if you tell us if something's not fitting, so that we can help try to find a way for it to feel better for your young person. So maybe the group that they're in is really loud and your young person struggles with that kind of squirrely wiggliness, or they're not sure who their person is and they're trying to figure out how to find a person to be their buddy. Let us know that stuff so that we can be helping set up the small group leader for success. And also we'll join you in praying for God to put the right people in your kid's life while they're around here so that they can claim this place as their place. That is our information. I have a whole list of resources for you. Like I said, you can come to this. We've got many of these in the library, or I have them in my office. You're welcome to borrow them. One new thing that's on here, and it's not really new, I just found it recently, is in the middle of this list, you can see there's a YouTube video by Abigail Baird. She's a professor. She's not Christian. You'll be able to tell that as you're listening to her, but she has some interesting, it's an hour-long YouTube video that if you watch on double speed is less than that, right? So it's really interesting information, and I think it could help you understand maybe behaviors that your young person is doing that you go, I'm confused by this. And you'll be like, oh, that makes sense. She's kind of a comedian as well. So it's entertaining and fun to listen to her talk about teenage brains. That's a new thing that I've found. And we are at 8:04. So I would love if you guys have specific questions. This is probably a weird place to share them, but you are very welcome to ask questions. Or if you have questions about ministry, things that are coming up that we didn't talk about or you are wondering about, we would love to know or answer those questions. And then I want to take a few minutes just to pray over our young people together. So, questions?
So those resources you just shared, how could we access that list again? Will you email it out or?
Yeah, so it's in this PowerPoint and I put the link in the chat if you wanted to grab it from there. And I will also include the link to this PowerPoint with the video of this when I send that out tomorrow, probably. And for you guys that may not know, Patrick, you can say hi. Patrick is our high school youth minister. So he is the next step in this delightful 7-year journey that your young person has from now through their senior year. When we may not talk about it. So we won't talk about how many weeks it is or time it is, because you might all start crying. We don't want you to cry. But after middle school, you get to go to high school, and Patrick is going to be in high school with your kids. So
yeah, so I'm a dad of a 6th grader too, which some of you guys know that. but yeah, it's when we get to high school, the problems get bigger, the choices get bigger, the joys get bigger, and they need a God that gets bigger and all that too with them. So just like all the other phases around here, we've got great, caring small group leaders who just want to connect your kid to Jesus and be another voice in that. So stick around, and just when they get to that level, I'm excited to be a part of that story too. So
Yeah.
but also weepy and terrified and excited about having a sixth grader with you. So
Amen. Yeah. But you made it through, like, your child losing their first teeth and riding bikes and going to school on school buses for the first time. All of these things, you've done hard things, all of you. You've sent your children off to play sports where balls and pucks and things could hurt them. You have definitely done the hard work of launching your kids into lots of environments. You're gonna do great. You're gonna do great. It's just a different way or world right now, phase, right? So I'd like to take a little bit of time and let's pray. And then we'll stick around. If you've got other things you want to talk about, we're happy to share those, to hear about it and talk about it. In the PowerPoint, aren't going to look through it, but I took pictures of some other phase cards materials that we've purchased from the phase folks at Orange. And so if you would like a copy of these, like a physical copy, just to put in your Bible or to set somewhere at your house, we have extra copies of these. Come and find me, introduce yourself to me in person, or just say hi to me, and I will give them to you. I have lots of copies. But these resources are pretty great. They're just easy, quick reminders of, oh, okay, we're normal. And okay, this is what my goal is in this. Because I think there's probably just times where you're tired and frustrated and it feels like this is never going to get better. And having something that reminds you that your kid is awesome and they're doing exactly what God, like, they may not be doing it in a way that reflects the amazingness of how God created them, but they are doing what they are supposed to be doing as growing young people, which is figuring out how to be themselves and use what they are good at and how they're wired. You get to just help shape that into use it for good and not for evil, right? Because they're still figuring out what that looks like. But you've got it. You can do this and you're not alone. So let's pray, and we'll be around if you have other thoughts or questions. God, you are good. You are faithful. And I thank you for these parents. I thank you for the young people in their households. I thank you for the gifts you've given them. I thank you for this place and this faith family where we can walk alongside each other and cheer each other on. I thank you for opportunities to trust you more. And God, these are the days where it feels like our trust muscles are getting strengthened and stretched, and sometimes they get sore. And so, Lord, I pray that you would refresh each of these parents today. God, that you would calm parts of their hearts that feel anxious or worried. Lord, that you would give them wisdom and discernment as they receive emotions and questions and maybe anger and frustration from their kid, that they would hear that, but really that they could see what their young person really needs from them, or that they would have eyes to see the root of whatever the emotions are, that they would be equipped to respond in a way that helps their young person know that they're steady, and that they're not going anywhere, and that they are a safe place to run to when life feels unsteady. God, you are so faithful, and you have taught us what it looks like to walk alongside other folks, because you are so faithful to hear us and to welcome us when we feel out of control or we don't know what to do. And so, Lord, I pray that you would go before each of these young people as they are growing into middle school, that you would help each of us to see the joy of this experience of discovering. I mean, it's awesome to discover how great you've made us. And so, Lord, I pray that there's a lot of joy in the midst of these years of transformation and transition. And Lord, I know personally, I'm just excited to get to know each of these young people and to set them up with a adult and a mentor and small group leader that loves them and will walk with them over the next few years. Lord, we ask that you would be glorified in all of this. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. Parting words, Sarah?
This is exciting. This is an exciting time. And it's always fun for me to be able to see how they grow from when I get them in Kids Link to when we celebrate them graduating. So this is exciting for me.
All right. Well, you're welcome to stick around, or you're welcome, you can take off if you'd like. We're thankful for your time tonight.
Thank you both. This was
Friday.
really nice.
Good, thank you.
Thanks.
And Friday night is Middle School Mania, so come on Friday. Your young person's welcome to be here and bring a friend on Friday. We're at Valley Creek.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
And then they're gone.
And then they're gone.
Can I stop the recording?